Howdy y'all. I suppose it's been a long time since I've been in this corner. Um, this is usually where I shoot all my painting segments for my channel Country Fried Minis. I've talked about it a bit in class, but never really got the chance to really expound upon it. And for that, as someone who's mildly experienced in YouTube creation, I find that this class has been super enriching. By no means am I an expert, but I've come into this class with a bit of understanding of putting together content and creating art for a audience that ingests it online. I figured I'd go ahead and show this spot, which is featured quite prominently in my videos. I usually do my talking head intro sections in this corner. As you can see, I've got all my hobby supplies up on the desk. I've got a camera mount bolted to the ceiling for my Rebel T100. It's a Canon EOS camera. They're about $400, but you can get good 1080p footage from it. And then, of course, I gather all my 4K on the phone here. What you can't see just off screen here are two softbox lights. So let me drag one into the frame and give you a peek at what I'm talking about here. So these guys are invaluable to your scene setting. You know, you can light things with it. They're pretty inexpensive and use CFL fluorescent bulbs. But without further ado, let's hop into some footage from online, and I will talk to y'all a bit about what I've learned this semester, what I've learned through my YouTube journey, and how what I've gained this semester will help going forward.
And to go ahead and preface this next section here, I'm going to go ahead and share some clips from my content on Country Fried Miniatures to kind of give you an example of my starting point before this class.
Howdy y'all, and welcome back to Country Fried Minis. I'm your host Cameron, the country boy in the big city, coming to you once again to talk about this Battletech lance that I'm putting together, and also to talk to y'all about accepting when our models are good enough. Now, as discussed in the previous episode, I myself am not the best sculptor nor painter in the world. It's real easy to get caught up looking at pictures of fantastic models and to try and hold ourselves to those standards that those painters put forward. That's not always necessary, and it's good to remember that good enough is good enough.
My intention today is to work with contrast paints. And for that, I've opted to use this Citadel Color Wraithbone spray as recommended by the manufacturer to prime my models. After putting some on the models, let's give it just a little bit of time to go ahead and cure up. By giving the primer ample time to cure, we've given these models a nice creamy coat which will really enhance any adhesion for paint that we put on the models in later steps. This smooth and even coat will work especially well with contrast paints, which we're going to use as the base layer. That being said, contrast paints are notorious for wearing out brushes. In that regard, I think it's about time to retire this number 2 round by Princeton Art and Brush Company. It's served me really well over the last 2 years, but the tip is starting to get pretty frayed and worn out. Ironically, that makes this brush almost perfect for applying washes and contrast paints. Now I'll go ahead and start mixing up a custom contrast color to paint up these mechs. I'd like a nice light base tone today, so I've elected to mix up a custom contrast color using this here Velour Brown. The resulting color will be a lot lighter than the apparent color of this paint on account of the contrast medium turning this color into a nice translucent layer. Now that we've got a nice puddle of the contrast medium on the wet palette, we'll go ahead and add a little bit of the Velour Brown and start mixing it up until it's a nice, smooth, even paint. Right now the color's still a little too dark, so I'm going to go back and add a little bit more medium to get a more transparent color. And once thoroughly mixed up, we'll go ahead and spread a little on the wet palette to judge the consistency of the paint. Perfect, nice and thin. Now we're going to take our freshly made paint and slop it over every square inch of this model. As you can see, the thin consistency of this contrast mix is going to provide an all-over tint rather than an opaque paint job over the mech. Since this paint is so thin, almost a wash in fact, it's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, going as far as to deposit the darker colors in the crevices like shadows, while also leaving the raised edges closer to the wraith bone.
So the clip I've just shared with y'all is what my channel's content looks like after about a year of development. The early stuff definitely shows some growing pains. In the very beginning, I didn't have proper lighting. The first few videos, I didn't even have a good camera. I was recording from a 720p webcam on my laptop, as you'll see right here. And there were definitely some other growing pains coming forward in the channel, like trying to get the sound balance correctly. I've been through several pieces of software. I now rely on a piece of software called Audacity, and it's really great for putting together sound clips. I just use my headset with a built-in microphone, or sometimes a microphone on a boom arm to capture good voiceover audio. Unfortunately today I'm in a bit of a rush, so I'm not getting the best audio. It's just coming from the phone there. But I think these talking head bits for this clip show that you can achieve some good stuff with even just your cell phone and some lights to really flood your subject. The content kind of developed into this idea of trying to bring a little bit of soothing, almost ASMR style painting content. I paint models, these little guys. They take a lot of effort for how small they are, and people need to learn shortcuts or ways to get it done and feel good about it. So it's a growing trend I've seen on YouTube. There's a few really prominent content creators who've inspired me to take the leap and start putting content out. So I try to bring this whole idea of like a country style Bob Ross. I want to be calm and inviting and soothing as I put these clips together, but also try to inject a little comedy here and there, whether I'm doing a bit or like a fun ad for a sponsor. It's a blast to do. Furthermore, all of these pieces of content require an immense number of clips to put together. Whether you're talking the models themselves, which can take upwards of 8 hours per model. I think in my latest video, I did a set of 16 and it took something like 20 hours to put together. So you can imagine when you're capturing the footage for that you end up with just immense numbers of individual files, as well as time to actually take the time and go through and edit it down and pare it down into some kind of usable content. Even these talking head bits can tend to be multiple shots. I usually will take them in multiple shots, although I'm trying to do a single take at the moment. That's usually not the case. So if you can imagine, there's like a whole formula of introduction, and then the opener that's in every episode, and then a talking head bit, and then I'll cut to like 5 or 6 angles of working on a portion of the model, cut back to a talking head and kind of discuss what's going on, cut back to finishing up the model, try to inject a little humor, and then slap the models on the turntable and get a good shot of what they look like when they're done, and then do an outro. And I also hope that some of you find yourselves inspired to continue putting together video art for the future, whether you're doing it for installations or, I don't know, like TikTok content or YouTube content, or even like if you're going into cinema stuff. I think there's been some invaluable stuff taught in this class, and that we've largely been given the tools to build the potential to make quality content going forward. And it's been a real blast, and I think it will go a long way in making my content better. So I hope to see some of y'all's work out there. Thanks for listening.